When supply lines snap, you want gear that forgives mistakes, not gear that needs pampering between uses. That's why I took the beating myself and tested the Remington 870 against the Mossberg 590 to find the one you can ignore and still depend on. What's up? I'm Luke from Line 45. Today, I'm cutting through the internet fanboys to tell you which pump I'd reach for when things get ugly. Before we dive in, do me a solid. Smash that subscribe, tap the bell, hit all the dang buttons down there. You don't gotta, but it keeps this train rolling and lets me crank out more of this wild gun talk for you all. Alright, enough of that. Let's get back to it. Unkillable? I care about what keeps cycling when the gun is gritty, wet, and getting short-stroked because my heart rate's at 180. My 590A1 is built for that life. Heavy-walled barrel, metal trigger guard and safety, Parkerized finish, twin action bars, and an elevator that stays out of the way so I can jam shells in fast. It earned a US military spec spot for durability and abuse testing. That tells me it can sit in a closet for months and still run. No cap. The Remington 870 brings a forged steel receiver and a reputation that's older than most of us watching this. The police trim is the move. You get a tougher carrier dog and sear springs, a machined extractor, and a finish meant for cruisers and rain. Those parts matter when the gun isn't babied. The cheaper express versions from certain years had rougher finishes and small parts that needed upgrading. If I go 870, I hunt for police or old Wingmaster bones. Bet. Running filthy changes how controls feel. The Mossberg's Tang safety is simple under stress and friendly for lefties with gloves. The action will still rack if I short it a hair, because the geometry is forgiving. The 870 action is butter once it's broken in and kept clean, and that steel receiver soaks up recoil in a good way. But I watch the lifter pinch on the 870 if I'm sloppy topping off. Under adrenaline, little ergonomics become big outcomes. Ask any range timer. If I lose lube, end up with budget shells, and the gun rides in dust for a week, my first grab in a bad night is the 590A1. It tolerates neglect, pattern checks are predictable, and sights stay put after knocks. An 870 police still earns respect if you stack the right springs and extractor in it. Bottom line, pick the one you can cycle fast in the dark, then pattern it and train until it's boring. Damn right. Hands-on. My hands-on rule is simple. If I have gloves, mud, or adrenaline, I want controls that I can hit without thinking. The Mossberg Tang or top safety and twin action bars let me do that. The 590 family ships with things like dual extractors, an anti-jam elevator, and a top-mounted ambidextrous safety that stays reachable in gloves and when switching shoulders, which matters when you are fumbling in low light. Those mil-spec 590A1 features are why units put them in trucks and why they keep working when you treat them roughly. The Remington 870 has a different vibe. That crossbolt safety behind the trigger is fine when you train on it, and the 870's forged steel receiver gives you that planted, satisfying rack. But the 870's carrier or lifter geometry can be picky if you try to top off fast or run cheap birdshot, and a weak carrier spring or worn latch shows up as a failure to feed fixes that are well documented and easy to retrofit, but you need to know what to swap before SHTF. I run any 870 I trust with an upgraded carrier spring and a good extractor. Under stress, the tiny stuff becomes huge. I want an ergonomics package that makes reloading and clearing jams stupid simple. Recent Mossberg updates like the rotary receiver safety on newer 590Rs show they're listening to real users who want thumb access without wrestling the gun. The 870 still wins on raw feel and inertia, but for quick, dirty work in gloves and bad light, I give the edge to the 590's controls unless your 870 has been duty-spec'd and upgraded. Ammo and speed. Capacity wins fights when your heart is pounding and you are topping off on the fly. On the Mossberg side, a 20-inch 590A1 gives me 8+1 with 2.75 shells, while the common 18.5-inch setup is 5+1. Remington 870 police guns with a 20-inch barrel and a factory extension run 7+1, and the 18-inch police configuration is usually 4+1. A lot of 870 Express-era tubes were dimpled, which means no quick extension until you remove those dimples. Keep that in mind before you assume capacity. Reload feel matters just as much as raw numbers. The Mossberg's elevator stays out of the way when the bolt is forward, so I can jam shells into the tube without fighting spring steel. That open port is friendly to strong hand or support hand techniques and stays friendly with gloves. The 870's lifter covers the port when the action is closed, so your thumb has to find the gate and ride it. With good reps, it is fast, but under adrenaline, it is less forgiving if your timing is sloppy. I stage both platforms, cruiser ready for SHTF, tube loaded, chamber empty, safety off for Mossberg, safety on for Remington per agency norms, action locked. That gives me a fast rack into the battery and a known condition check by feel. Side saddles and a butt cuff are free speed. I keep buckshot on the gun and 1 or 2 slugs staged at the front position, so I can grab them first for a quick select slug drill. Patterning decides what your ammo does past the doorway. Most defensive barrels are cylinder bore, so standard 00 buck spreads quickly, and each barrel behaves a little differently. Tightwad loads like Federal Flight Control or similar keep pellets together and buy you cleaner hits at distance. I test 2 or 3 loads per gun and lock the winner in. That simple routine turns capacity and reloads into real fight speed. Fix fast. I carry a tiny parts kit because the failure modes repeat, weak springs, extractor springs, and followers. The 590A1 gives twin extractors and a clean-out magazine tube that cuts field strip time, but I still pack a spare extractor pin and a light extractor spring to swap if a shell digs in the lip. For the 870, I always carry a police carrier dog spring and an extractor kit, because many Express-era small parts are soft and wear, especially under adrenaline and in gritty conditions. When I have time to prep, I install service-grade parts. Dropping in a police carrier spring and a machined extractor on an 870 fixes most feed hiccups, and those parts are widely available. For Mossbergs, I fit a Magpul or M-Lock forend and a reliable side saddle, so reloads and handling improve without touching the twin action bar reliability. I prefer upgrades that are reversible and fixable with basic punches and drivers because they cut on-gun failures and reduce scavenging for rare parts later in outages. Field fixes are fast if you train them. Strip the forend, pull the action bars, swap the carrier spring or extractor, and dry cycle the action before you leave the site. My go kit is as follows: extractor spring, carrier dog spring, firing pin, retaining pin, magazine spring, small punch, thread locker, and a small cleaning mat. So here's what I can recommend. Practice the swap until it is muscle memory. When you can fix a feed problem by feel with gloves on, you have earned the right to call your shotgun reliable. Battle proven. The 590A1 earned its rep the hard way. The US military demanded a shotgun that could take drops, thousands of full-power rounds, and straight-up abuse, and Mossberg built it to pass mil-spec 3443E. I've run one through mud, sweat, and long-duty stints, and the heavy-walled barrel, Parkerized finish, and twin action bars show up as real advantages where rough handling is constant. Units picked the A1 for exactly that reason. They needed a pump that kept firing after being slammed around in trucks and boats, not a pretty range gun. Remington's 870 is an icon for a reason. Forged steel receiver, decades of law enforcement service, and a track record in every environment from hunting fields to city cruisers. The police spec 870 seconds that agencies bought came with beefed-up small parts and are the ones I trust for hard use. That said, production variations over the years matter. A lot of the express line guns from certain runs needed parts upgrades to reach duty-grade reliability, so I vet serials and roll marks before I trust one for a kit. Agencies kept using 870 seconds because they can be brutalized and still work when set up right. When I stack real-world track records against each other, context decides the winner. If you want mil-spec, out-of-the-box, survivability, and the confidence that came from military torture tests, the Mossberg 590A1 has that documented pedigree. If you want proven law enforcement legacy, a steel receiver that soaks recoil, and a massive aftermarket of duty upgrades, the Remington 870 police variants hold their own, but only after you confirm the build and, if needed, drop in service-grade components. I plan for parts and practice fixes either way. The battlefield doesn't care about brand loyalty, only what still runs. Which I'd grab. Here's my call, no fluff. If I have to stash one pump and forget it, I'm grabbing a Mossberg 590A1. The A1 passed the Army's mil-spec 3443E torture tests, and the heavy-walled barrel, twin action bars, steel-to-steel lockup, and ambidextrous top safety are real features that matter when the gun gets banged, muddy, or ignored for months. That documented mil-spec pedigree is why units actually fielded it and why it stays serviceable under brutal conditions. The Remington 870 still earns respect and can be a killer rig if you start with a police spec model or a true wingmaster and fit service-grade small parts. A forged steel receiver and the right carrier dog and extractor springs make an 870 feel like a tank, and many agencies ran them for decades for good reasons. The snag is production variants. Express line guns have known small parts and finish issues that mean you need to vet the build or plan upgrades before you trust one for life or death use. So yeah, if you want out-of-the-box toughness, 590A1. If you already own an 870 or can score a police model, invest in a carrier dog spring, machined extractor, and a tiny parts kit, and you will be solid. Train reloads and field fixes until they are muscle memory. In a blackout, you do not win debates. You win with the gun you can cycle and fix by feel.